We're going to be 100 before we know it, of Mastering Modern Selling. I'm Tom Burton here today with my other awesome co-host, Carson Hetty. Carson, great to have you back. Brandon, you went in one door and Brandon went out the other. Brandon is out traveling and I think he's in Palm Springs, as a matter of fact.
He is. Yeah, we were like ships passing in the night. I was in Atlanta yesterday and he wasn't there. So
I know. I mean, what's the nerve of him?
I know. I make the time to go to his fair city and he's not even there with the red carpet.
I know.
So
all right. Well, he'll have to make up for that for sure.
That's right.
So we have another awesome guest, Victoria Jimenez. Victoria, welcome to the show. So this is going to be pretty interesting, Carson, is Victoria is not kind of our usual guest where, we either have kind of sales luminaries and consultants and we have actual, practitioners. She's a practitioner, but she's been a practitioner at the University of Texas, correct? In Dallas on the sales program there. So, and she's going to take us through today, and I strongly encourage, if you're listening live, if you have any questions on this, because this is very unique, what she's going to go through, going to take us through her whole curriculum, what she's did, her internship, and kind of where that's led her, and how that all relates to the future of modern selling.
Sweet. Well, thank y'all so much for allowing me to come in and join the party here. I'm always watching y'all's podcast and keeping up with y'all, Brandon, Carson, Tom. I'm following y'all on LinkedIn, so I know what y'all been doing. But yeah, thank you so much for just allowing me this opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. This is exciting. And, I think as we were kind of prepping for the episode, really exploring how common it is that Victoria hears like, my goodness, I wish they had something like this available when I was in school. And, how this is becoming more and more burgeoning in colleges today. Victoria was sharing that, there's now in the hundreds of universities that are offering this kind of curriculum. So I think, I'm very fascinated by, what's being taught. And, Victoria shared some stuff with us as we prepped that was very intriguing about, frankly, things that I think we should be applying right now as sellers and sales leaders. So buckle up, audience.
That's right. So Victoria, why don't you start from the beginning? And maybe even before going to University of Texas, what motivated you to go do the program? How did you find out about it? Have you been interested in sales your whole life? Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got there.
So I've been exposed to sales, and I think a lot of sales leaders will agree with me on this, but I've been exposed to sales my whole life. Started very young. My mom was in sales. She sold modeling, an opportunity for children to get into modeling with Barbizon when I was very young. So I was her little tag along, running around with her on those events. And then Girl Scouts, I got to sell all the cookies, of course. Of course. And so sales has really just been a big part of my life, all my life. And even through food service, I see a direct correlation between being in food service and being in sales. There's a lot of similarities when it comes to your own responsibility for how much money you're going to make and how many tips you're going to get at the end of the night. So when I went to school, I started at Collin College, general business degree, still wasn't totally sure where I wanted to go with it, but I knew business was going to get me in the door anywhere. And took about a year off after my associate's degree and decided, you know what, it's time to go back. I can't wait any longer. So applied for the University of Texas at Dallas, got in, and it really took off from there. My business program, my degree program that I was a part of, it requires you to take an intro to sales class. So that was my first dive into sales in academia. So that's where I really learned, sales isn't this slimy stereotype that everybody really thinks it is. It's an opportunity to make a change in other people's lives and to help people find solutions to the problems that they may not even know that they have. So I found a lot of I found a lot of interest in that discovery stage, that needs analysis. I think that's probably my favorite part of the sales process is just uncovering everything that, may potentially be a problem or could currently be a problem as well.
Wow. Well, very healthy viewpoint on a lot of things, and I don't know that it's all that common. When you first got to University of Texas, did you know you wanted to go into the sales program, or were you going into their business program, and then you found out more about the sales program when you got there?
Probably the latter. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. The degree plan that I was a part of, it gave me a lot of opportunity to look into different avenues of business and see what areas really resonated with me and my personality, and where I could see myself, making an impact with an organization in the future. Then when I started the intro to sales class, that's where everything really opened up for me and where I said, you know what, this is it. This is where I belong. And so the intro to sales class was a requirement for my degree plan, but after the rookie preview competition that they have at the end of that semester, that's where, it was in my hand. The ball was in my court at that point, and I said, I'm going for the advanced class. I'm going to learn more. I'm going to dive deeper, and I'm going to see where I can really take this.
I got so many questions. So, Victoria, talk to us about the curriculum and even like a Cliff's Notes version of like what were some of the big things that you learned. I hear congratulations are in order, that you're going to be starting here in a sales role very, very soon, that you got the offer, so congratulations there. How are you planning to approach your first sales role based on what you've learned?
Well, I find that the most effective approach is the humanistic one. So instead of seeing a title, seeing a CTO or a CIO, a director, and feeling intimidated by that title, just approaching people as people. And that's where LinkedIn comes to play. That's where you get the opportunity to really see what these people care about, see what those CEOs are worried about or looking into, what groups they're a part of. And that's where you get insights into what's at the top of mind for these people and how can I reach out and how can I help.
I love that you said that. And here's a special reason why. I get to spend a lot of time with salespeople, some that are very seasoned, some that are very early in career. And I will tell you that, and I was actually just this week with several C-level executives. And I know why. We sometimes get intimidated by the title. I will tell you, I put pressure on myself in those situations because I want to make sure I ask the right things or I say the right thing. But the human element is so critical. And especially when I spend a lot of time with sellers, whether they've been doing it for 20 years or they've been doing it for 20 days, that is often a commonality. It's an uncomfortable muscle and it takes practice. We have to get good at having those conversations. And the way you just described is the best way. Being able to go out to LinkedIn, being able to go out to their website, and heck, now even being able to, feed some of that information into AI models like ChatGPT and have it help you, arm you with questions that you might be able to ask that person. Knowing them on a personal level and what really makes them tick and what motivates them and what brought them to their organization, because I would imagine they have something that is a passion project or a charter that's important to them, all the way to really understanding, what came out of their earnings report, what's top of mind for that organization. Knowing that going into those conversations, but keeping them based in humanity is so important. I love that you said that. Tell us more about the curriculum, as far as like,
Yeah.
how was it structured? What are some of the other key lessons that, that really came out of what you were taught?
So something I really enjoyed about the program was how it was structured, because it wasn't, open this textbook, read this PowerPoint, take all these notes, take a test. There were no tests in the sales program. It was all based on practice. So, role plays every single week. There's a competition for both the intro students and the advanced students. So for the intro students, you're preparing all semester long you're learning Salesforce, you're getting hands-on knowledge, you're doing trailheads, and you're learning how to sell Salesforce. You've got a buyer that you get the script, or you don't get a script, but you get the, the key elements of what this buyer, is facing in their organization. And you need to be able to identify, all right, well, Salesforce does this, this, and this. So these solve problems X, Y, and Z. And being able to, convey that message effectively, go through that needs analysis, you learn the sales cycle, all in preparation for a competition at the end of the semester. And the competition was probably my favorite part, honestly. Super intense. Everybody in the program is trauma bonded. And so, you're going through, you have 15 minutes to come in, do a needs analysis, you're building rapport, you're doing a product demo, and you have to close. And so, that's so intimidating for somebody who has never been exposed to sales in a real life situation. You have to know your product. You have to be able to identify and, make those connections.
Hey, before you go any further, I want to clarify something because I think this is super important. So what I heard you say is, first of all, your sales training, the training you went through, they use Salesforce CRM as kind of the product that you were trained on to go sell. Is that correct?
That is.
So you were being trained on B2B, I'll call it more enterprise sales. I mean, this isn't going and selling some SMB simple little product or even consumer products. This is a B2B enterprise sale doing CRM that you're now being trained on. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And was the entire program based around that? Or did they say, okay, here's your strategy for doing more enterprise sales, and then if you're selling smaller ticket items, or was it really focused around kind of the bigger ticket enterprise sale like a Salesforce is?
It's focused around the enterprise sales level.
Wow. Okay. That's really, really interesting.
You go big or go home.
I mean, many folks, it's amazing because that's not an easy sale. I've been in cloud and technology for years and SaaS for years. And, to really master that, I love how everything that you said as well, Victoria, is really grounded in the fundamentals. Because at the end of the day, that's where I think a lot of salespeople can go awry, is lack of ability to execute the fundamentals. Kind of the way that you approach that, the process. Multiple times you said things about the process and, the needs analysis, how you kind of diagnose the problem and the situation, but that knowing your product is key. While this is a different mold, like Tom said, a different type of episode, it's very poignant because, of how you're getting very grounded in all of the fundamentals. What, obviously sales has changed a lot, over, the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years for very different reasons. A lot of times it's technological advances and, the way we meet our buyers where they are. Also the way buyers are informing themselves and staying informed. What, if anything, how is social media addressed in your class? How, as a tool or even just as a presence in sales?
So social media, specifically LinkedIn, for both classes, you have to have a specific SSI score on SalesNav.
What was it?
Intro, I believe it was, you had to be above 25, 30.
Okay.
But then the advanced class, you had to be above 60.
Wow. It's quite a jump.
Yeah. And they teach everything. So, you're learning how to use the CRM, of course, Salesforce. And then you're learning how to balance LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, to identify your prospects, to really keep up with trends, and to be able to identify triggers.
I love that. And when you say triggers, so we talk about this sometimes on this show, like what would be some of the ones that you see as a trigger that you would want to react to as a salesperson?
So, in reference to my internship at GTN, I was reaching out to top tech leaders, um, seeing if there was any opportunity for any staffing services. And so the sales triggers that I kept an eye on were primarily like funding, open hire or open roles, if they were even actively hiring or if they were in a hiring freeze. And then also through Sales Navigator, I paid attention to, where these new hires were coming from, what organizations they were leaving to join, my prospect.
Very smart.
So back to and one of the things I think you pointed out is you spend a lot of time learning Salesforce, right? Not because to use it as a user, well, maybe to use it as a user, but also to sell it, to really be able to sell that.
Mhm.
Kind of going back to Carson's question, what were I guess, the key elements that in the program that were taught? Like, what are the fundamentals? Like, really understand your customer or your prospect, really understand the product you're selling. Sort of, what were the foundational elements that were really focused on in that program?
So, of course, it was, Dr. Dover wrote a book. So, the advanced program, that was primarily, it piggybacked off of the fundamentals that he teaches in his book. So, not being that pushy salesperson, showing up relevantly, not just talking to anybody, but being able to explain why you're reaching out to somebody specifically is really, really important. Um, and I think that, by using that tactic, you're so much more likely to see success in sales, instead of just spraying and praying, as they call it. So, avoiding spray and pray was a big fundamental, understanding your product, of course. And then basic business acumen was a very big part of the program. Being able to identify, why do businesses care about certain things? Why are new tools necessary for certain businesses, and what problems can arise if, these tools aren't implemented?
I see a huge opportunity here, Tom. I don't know about you, but we need to get Brandon Lee on as an adjunct professor. Um, Victoria, I'm curious too. Like, I just have so many questions about you know, what, first of all, we talk to salespeople sometimes and they make comments like, oh my gosh, we're going to be replaced or our job's going to change because of AI and all of these types of things. Obviously, if we're growing, teaching sales in school, it ain't going anywhere. So I do take some solace in that for sure. I think the great salespeople will always find a need because of what you just said, that ability to really go in, understand clients at a deeper level, and create a relationship and earn that right to be a trusted advisor. Are there any ways that artificial intelligence was talked about in the course? Just kind of some of its implications in sales, ways to use it to be more effective. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so when I was in the advanced program, it was really when AI was gearing up. ChatGPT was still a new thing. Everybody was hyped about AI. Professors were trying to figure out how to maneuver it so that they could tell if students were using AI to write papers or anything like that. So, sales program, we used AI all the time. ChatGPT actually graded our role plays. It was kind of a pilot project. So we had weekly role plays, 2 to 3 role plays a week that we submitted in based off of, our prompts, and we were gearing up to talk to prospects to see if any companies, could see benefit from partnering with the sales program as a recruiting source. And so those role plays, we used Chorus, and so we pulled the transcripts off of Chorus and we fed it into ChatGPT, gave it the rubric for our grading, and asked it, all right, based off of this transcript, based off of this rubric, give me a score and identify areas where I can improve. Give me suggestions on, how I can word things to be more effective or to communicate more effectively. AI was just a major part of our projects.
That's game changing. I mean, I remember, goodness gracious, I'm going to say this, back in the day when I had to listen to calls from salespeople. And, what I love is the way that AI is being integrated into this process. You'd have to go in and listen to a call, and somebody would inevitably interrupt you. And it's a, 10, 15, 20-minute call, and you've got to score it and grade it. And I mean, it took a lot of time. And now the ability to rapidly analyze, especially even based on that rubric, how a call would score relative to these, and then giving you prompts on how you can improve your process. I think I say this to salespeople all the time and sales leaders all the time. Shame on us collectively if we're not finding the ways to leverage AI to do our job better and to find ways to get closer to our customers. So I love that you pulled that off.
You know what I
Absolutely.
find? You know what I find really interesting about this, Carson, and it does tie back because, and Victoria, don't let me put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing you say is, when I listen to you, I don't listen to what, if I would have thought of sales training, right? If someone says sales training, I would think of something, but I'm not hearing you say those things. What I'm hearing you say is you went through training on really how to understand products and what you're selling. You went through training on how to build relationships and how to have a human element. And then the part that you had mentioned about, like really understanding the business part of it, you were learning how to communicate like an executive, right? If you're going to communicate to an executive, then you should learn how to communicate in a way that an executive cares about. None of that is really sales per what a lot of people, you started off with a slimy definition of sales. Nobody, this isn't about coercion or how do I hit somebody 50 times or like, all the numbers game I don't hear any of that. I really hear fundamentals of business. And what's interesting, Carson, is that if you get good at this, right, you can then write your ticket all the way up the ladder, up
Yep.
into the C-suite. I mean, this is C-suite material that you have here.
Understanding process and having C-level acumen at that stage. I think back and like how long it took me, because there weren't a lot of people that invested the time or even really had the ability to train some of those things. When we had sales training, it'd be
Right.
they'd pay somebody to come in and they'd give some rah motivational speech, and they were not in our industry. They had no idea like how to practically apply it to what we did. And then there was no follow-up training. So it's like everybody goes back to their comfortable ways of mediocrity. But what I love about what Victoria is articulating is that it sounds like some forward-thinking in the now colleges are training people now, early stage, to understand the foundation of what it takes to be successful in sales. And that gives me hope for the sales future.
Yeah, I mean,
I
to me, it's teaching you how to be successful in business. Sorry, go ahead, Victoria.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's exactly what Dr. Dover had in mind whenever he developed this sales program. He saw the way that sales used to be, and he saw the challenges that, new sellers were facing and said, this needs to change. And developed this whole sales program, and it changes every semester. They just changed the format for rookie preview, and now instead of a 1-day event, it's a 2-week period where students are being able to do their role plays. It's in smaller groups, and then they're being able to have face-to-face contact with the different partners to ask those questions and say, what's challenging about this role? What do I need to know now to be ready by the time that I graduate?
You mentioned something else when we were prepping, Victoria, about the regular, I think they were weekly, like win-loss meetings. Tell us more about that.
That was also a really big part that I loved about the sales program, and that I hope to see in my future career, with this organization that I've accepted an offer from, and then also, further down the line as I grow, is every single week, at the end of the week, we would sit in our groups. We had assigned groups, 4 or 5 people, and we're actively selling in the sales program. We're trying to find new partners or scholarship opportunities with alums. And so we're going around and sharing what went well this week, what didn't go well this week, And through conversations with our peers, we're able to identify and say, I didn't even think about doing that. That is a great way to try and start a conversation with a total stranger. And, we're going over outreach techniques, scripts, conversations, questions to ask, and we're identifying ways to lead the conversation to our end goal.
I love that. And everybody listening, watching, you should implement that today if you don't already. There's so much value in the best practices sharing, the time spent, really gelling as a team. But also, I can tell you, just having done this for the majority of my career, I always wanted to know if somebody was doing something better than I was, or they were performing in a metric, or there was a great learning from a win or a loss, that I'm taking that knowledge and I'm assimilating that into my arsenal. I didn't get to be successful in sales by going at it on my own. It was all about how can I take all these perspectives and learn from everybody around me. I think that's fascinating. And Victoria, just a little bit, like, if you don't see what you want to see in a future team, bring it to the team. I've always benefited from that too. You can be the change that you want to see in these team dynamics. And those are the types of things that'll make you stand out as a seller and as an individual contributor. They'll help your career tremendously, because if you're able to increase the impact that you can have on your team and on your organization by sharing best practices, that is what helped me ultimately write my ticket. It's taken every bit of, the last 10 years, but it's given incredible momentum. And I know that you will be very successful. I also am curious, since you're spending time with a lot of aspiring salespeople and you're studying sales, I'd love to hear any, what are your favorite sales movies, sales books, sales podcasts? Like, what are you consuming to, sharpen the axe and stay at the pulse of sales?
Well, I'm always looking into new podcasts. Of course, I follow Mastering Modern Selling. It's on my Spotify list. I've got y'all favorited. And then I've got to give props to, the Sales Innovation Paradox by Dr. Dover, Dr. Howard Dover. I'm not allowed to call him Howard because I haven't hit my $100,000 mark yet. But
I got to meet this guy.
Oh, he's awesome. You'll love him.
Brandon, I think, has been trying to get him on the show. I think we'll get him on the show. This
sounds good.
Yeah.
He's close with Brandon. We really should.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's do it.
And then also, we, during the sales program in the advanced class, we got to read parts of Revenue Architecture by Jocko. That was a dense read. It's on a master's level reading list. But we had access to a couple chapters that we reviewed every single week. That's where a lot of the business acumen came from, was from Revenue Architecture by Jocko.
So I have to know if there's a master's of sales class out there or curriculum where I could become, in essence, a doctor of sales.
That's right.
That might be a next aspiration for me.
Dr. Dover does teach a master's class.
Okay.
But
that might be what gets me to go back to school.
To do it.
A master's of sales.
It's never too late. And then, Matt Dixon, Jolt Effect.
Love Matt. He was on the show. Yeah, Jolt Effect changed the game for me. I mean, here's the thing. I've been doing this a long time. And I mean, what I love about this, Victoria, is that there's content like that that's out there that's being written that still, changes my entire perspective. And I love the fact that, you and your classmates are being exposed to that, and you'll go out and you'll sell responsibly, which I think is amazing.
Absolutely. And I love the way you said that. That's how I should have worded it initially, is we were learning to sell responsibly.
Yeah.
Well, and if you learn how to sell responsibly, I mentioned before, right, you have a great career path. But if you want to go the entrepreneur or the startup route, there is nothing more foundational than knowing how to sell responsibly. Right. I mean, companies that get off the ground, obviously they have to have a good product, but if they have a good product, most of them don't know how to sell responsibly. And actually, a lot of startups right now have raised a lot of money and had a lot of venture funding, are burning up because they really didn't learn to sell responsibly along the way. So just an awesome foundation.
My team hires people out of Dallas, by the way. So if Victoria's got any classmates that are looking for jobs in Dallas, give me a call. I'd
Yeah.
love to meet some people.
I have a few in mind. I'll have to send you their
Good.
information.
I want to meet the responsible sellers out there that are fearless, that want to go in, talk to C-levels, and understand the sales process. That sounds amazing to me. And that's another lesson learned, I think, for our audience today is that old hiring managers like me want to meet people that understand process and also have that acumen to be able to talk to the C-suite, understand needs analysis. If you've been trained right, it's very likely that you're going to jump in and have success. Just stick with it. I'd love to hear too, Victoria, what would you say are some of the biggest takeaways as far as like lessons learned around losses or objections and things of that nature? What did you take away from the class about those types of experiences? Because they're inevitable.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to hear a lot of no's before you hear yes. So I think the biggest lesson of all is always resilience. You don't push your limits too far to where you lose sight of the mission, but you need to be able to continue to push through. No matter how many no's that you hear, there's always going to be a yes somewhere. And as long as you're identifying the right ICP and doing due diligence and understanding your customer or your prospect, you'll get that yes eventually.
So take us through your internship, because you did an internship here. Kind of where did that fit in the curriculum? And I know you're wrapping up in June is your graduation, or graduating even before then, sooner than later, right?
I actually graduate on Monday.
Oh, that's sooner than later. Yeah. That's
really soon. Yeah. So I met GTN through the sales program. They're a big partner with UTD, and they have all these networking events for the sales program, and you're able to see all the opportunities that are laid out in front of you. All you have to do is pick. And I picked GTN, and GTN was a great experience. IT staffing, staffing in general is a really, really hard market for a seller. There's so many different avenues that businesses can take, but there's also a lot of advantages to using a staffing firm. You get access to a very niche candidate pool, and the staffing firm, or at least GTN, I can't speak for all of them, but GTN, they're the middleman between the hiring team and the CTO. They're able to identify who is going to be the most qualified candidate, who's going to get the job done, stay with the job, and improve their business overall.
I love the fact that you throw yourself into the challenging as well. You didn't do some cakewalk program or internship. Like, you really wanted to throw yourself into the one that's going to help you cut your teeth. That's smart.
Yeah.
We need to do a follow-up episode, Tom. We need to schedule her for about a year out or 6 months out. And I'd love to hear the learnings.
She'll probably be a CRO somewhere, and
could be. I might be working for it by that point.
But what happened then? What was your role at the internship? Like, what was your job? What did you do? How did it then apply what you've learned? How did you see the continuity, I guess, between what you were doing in the academic world and in the real world?
The role at GTN, I was a business development representative. So I was doing all the cold outreach, trying to searching the prairie lands for new clients to join the team at GTN so that we could help them fill roles that were critical to, the success of their business, or be able to identify gaps in their hiring process to get them those better candidates that don't want to wait 2-3 weeks just to find out if they, made the cut, or go through 17 interviews and do 17 different projects, So I was able to see the other side of the table. And that's a lot of what I took from that internship, was just, instead of being on the interviewee side of the table, I got to see the other side of the table and see the whole entire process that goes into hiring that top quality candidate. So I was doing a lot of cold outreach, which Of course, I had some experience in the sales program, just reaching out to, recruiters and things like that for partnerships. But this was an opportunity for me to really see what I got and use use all the tools that the sales program had given me to build that business book for GTN.
And I assume you were using LinkedIn and phone and email and a combination of things to kind of
Oh,
build those relationships. Yeah.
I used Fist Bump. I used Sales Navigator, LinkedIn, Zoom Info. They have their own CRM system, so I got to learn that. That was fun. I always love learning the new tech.
Just- And how long was the internship?
It was 3 months. I was there from January to May.
Okay.
4 months.
So how did you do?
I did really well. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I think that's the biggest learning curve was, coming to understand where my limits are and how to push those limits and how to grow as an individual, be able to handle the stress of a sales job, be able to handle that rejection, and be able to just keep pushing through.
Awesome. Awesome. So you're graduating on Monday. You've
And
accepted a job in June. So
yes.
you're all ready to go. So you'll have a month or so off and you're ready to go and get right back into it.
Yep, give me some vacation time to get my head to stop spinning.
Enjoy it now. Enjoy it now.
So generally, and I know, obviously, you're going to be in training and you're going to be getting a lot of different resources and things of that nature. But how are you thinking about going to market in your sales job? And maybe even how did you approach? You mentioned that there was a lot of, white space, green field in the, even in your internship role. How do you kind of think about going to market? What's your, how do you roadmap out how you're going to go after the people that you contacted, et cetera?
So I start big and then I narrow it down. So I start with organizational. What does that company do? I understand their business, what customers they need to reach out to. And then I narrow it further. So I compare it to what we do. So for GTN, we're in staffing. So it's specifically in the technical space. And so I narrowed it down to, okay, well, as long as these people have an IT team and they do something technical, then who's in charge of the people who are doing that technical work? So CTOs, C-suite, CIOs, CISOs, and I take it two different routes. So I go after the C-suite, big fish, and then I also take it the HR route. Who are my recruiters? What does their recruiting team look like? Do they have technical recruiters on board already that know the tech industry and know the tech lingo, or do they not? And that's an opportunity. So if I'm able to identify with GTN specifically, if I was able to identify whether there was already a bridge between their hiring team and their technical team and their CTOs, then that's an opportunity.
I love it. I mean, like just the little things like that you can go out to Sales Navigator and you can go to an organization and you can look at keywords and you can understand like what types of roles that they have or what type of background they have. And then going to their LinkedIn and looking at their profile. The other thing too, like, the ability to leverage AI, one of the things that I've been doing recently, and I'm tinkering too, like that's the fun thing about this is when there's new technological advances, like how you understand the tech, like, Victoria, I hope you realize that a lot of the things that you've said today, you get it. And I hope our audience that's watching, like, because I know that there's sellers that have been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years that probably don't get it the same way you do. I know I didn't, at stages in my career, right? So, but like tinkering with the tech and to be able to go out to something like ChatGPT and basically say, like, you can copy in an organization's about us and you can copy in a person's LinkedIn profile. And then you can say, how can my organization you can name the org, or you can paste in like things from your own website or whatever it is. Like, write me some talking points, write me an outreach email. Now, it's not ready to run on its own. That's why we need great salespeople that can use the tech and then responsibly use it to try to get the meetings. But I mean, there's so much at our fingertips right now. And I love that you were so grounded in process, but also using all of these ways to go out and reach out to the right people with the right message and talk to them like a human being. Like, this is so refreshing.
I'm glad you feel refreshed.
I'm inspired. I'm inspired today.
He's ready to go back to school. He's going to be applying.
I want to be a doctor of sales.
Right.
I want people
That's
to have
right.
to call me Dr.
Dr. Carson. I like Dr. Carson.
Right.
Has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Well, Victoria, thank you. This has been very, 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 as he said, inspiring, refreshing, insightful. I think it's a great example of what we talk about as modern selling. It's very refreshing to see that this is happening with young people in school. That's really refreshing. Carson, I was funny as you were talking. I was like looking back, going, my sales career has been more through startups and tech companies versus the larger companies like you, but still sales, right? You still have to, and the training I had, and what, if you wanted to call it sales training and all that, compared to what Victoria went through, is like, man, I would have had some of that at your age. I don't know. It could have been a lot different results, and a lot faster. So you're very fortunate.
I agree. Victoria, anything else that, maybe we didn't touch on that you think is especially pertinent for this conversation? I see an immense value in what you've articulated today. And I hope that everybody watching and listening is able to just, even realize and revisit, what's your process? How are you thinking about going to market? How do you take, a big picture strategic view of what you do, but also how you reach out and how you meaningfully engage with your target customer? And then, not shying away from people because of title. You outlined some really great, elements today, but anything else that's, that you think's pertinent from your class or your experience?
I just think overall, anybody who's thinking of getting into sales, no matter where they may be in their journey or in their career journey, if you're happy to talk to people, and you love to solve problems and you like a good challenge and you're competitive, just do it. Get into sales. It's a great way to take control of your own income. It's something that really appealed to me, and just with that correlation with my food service background. And, it's never always just be a sponge. There's never a cap on how much you can learn, especially in sales.
Unbelievable. Dr. Dover should make a recruiting ad for students featuring what you just said. That was
well. We'll give him this episode and tell him he can use it for.
There you go. You could probably get extra credit for showing that you know the material in this way.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Well done.
Thank you.
I feel good
Victoria,
about
if somebody wants to connect with you on LinkedIn, where can they find you? And what's your LinkedIn handle, or any other places you'd like people to connect with you?
Yeah, so I keep all my professional connections to LinkedIn. If they want to find me on Facebook later, then that's fine. They're going to find a lot of pictures of cats. Cats and art. But yeah, LinkedIn is where I keep all of my professional connections, and I'm always happy to set up a coffee chat and introduction. I just love learning about other people's stories and how they got to be where they are and where they're trying to go, and identify where I can help in that route.
Okay. Well, I recommend connecting, and I agree, Carson. We'll have you back in a few months here, and we'll be very interested to see how your new chapter is evolving and what's happening. And somehow I think you're going to probably be promoted by the next time we're on I don't know. That's my prediction, but we'll see.
3 months, I might be in a new spot.
Right. Could be running Microsoft sales. You never know.
Yeah, watch out, Carson.
Hey, I welcome that. We're always looking for talent. So,
all right, Carson, any final words before we sign off?
No, just this was amazing. Victoria, thank you. And for our audience, until next time, happy